Alright, Shalom, Akim, Shalom. First and foremost, as always, before we get started, giving all praise to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, the elders of Great Millstone that have taught us His truth and that rule well. And peace and blessings go out to the hopeful members of the elect, scattered throughout the four winds of the earth, that are in the hopes of receiving salvation and mercy during the time of Jacob trouble, and that are worshiping the Heavenly Father in sincerity, in spirit, and in truth. Alright? Now this will be a lesson where we go into some news and prophecy concerning the whole matter of what happened Saturday. I believe it was June the 21st, alright, where you had pretty much the U.S. Bomb Iran under the sense of Iran being deemed as creating some kind of nuclear missile, within their facility where they're hosting that program, which, as you look at what Netanyahu has been saying for decades, I believe it was 33 years, he's been pretty much pointing out that, Iran's coming up with a nuclear weapon, this, that, and the third, and it's gotten to a point now where the U.S. has finally done something about it, but when you look past the smoke and mirrors, because that's really all that is, alright, it does nothing more but show us that we're coming to the time where the Heavenly Father is putting all the pieces to the puzzle together for the purpose of fulfilling the third woe, alright. Now, the first piece of information that I actually want to grab is from a book that the beloved apostles always mention here and there, entitled Satan's Angels Exposed, by the name of a guy called Salem Kirkban. Alright, now when you hit page 163, if I'm not mistaken, page 163 gives you a set rundown of this one guy by the name of Albert Pike that pretty much constituted a process of how, in order to take complete control of the world, they would come up with three wars, alright? Which in the scriptures we understand that there are three woes, which are synonymous for world wars, alright? So let's get into it. It says, Albert Pike's three supreme councils controlled 23 other subordinate groups throughout the world. The Mazzini-Pike plan was to control the world. How would this be accomplished? The plan was relatively simple. It called for, according to the writings of some, communism, fascism, and the struggle for the Middle East to form three global wars and at least two major revolutions. Alright? Now real quick, I want to look up the word fascism really fast and get a couple definitions for this word, because when it comes down to the whole scheme of how Esau has always conducted himself within the world, he's always played the narrative of being a fascist, alright? And he really does it in the name of certain terms like democracy, alright? Although democracy stands in the name of being for the people and all this rhetoric, alright? It's nothing more but a facade, man, alright? Because the Joe Biden administration showed you that, along with many other administrations that have done nothing more but played in the narrative of the higher class, alright? So real quick, it says, fascism is a far-right authoritarian, ultra-nationalist political ideology characterized by dictatorial power, alright? Forcible suppression of opposition and strong regimentation of society and the economy. It emphasizes the nation or race above individual interest, promoting a hierarchical social structure, and often employing militarism. Alright? Fascism is fundamentally opposed to democracy, as they like to call it, liberalism, or socialism. Alright? But again, as you've seen how Esau has conducted himself within the earth, of pretty much setting himself up as America and pretty much making it the welfare of where everybody goes to make trades and try to make businesses, alright? That in essence is what a dictatorship is, man, alright? And pursuant to the book of, let's get that real quick, in the book of Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, alright? the scriptures point out, Esau being in this manner. All right. So real quick, this is Habakkuk chapter 2, and let's actually you know what? Let me start at 15. All right. It says, "Woe unto them that give his neighbor drink, that puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drink also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness." And this, in essence, is what democracy, all right, and the many other philosophies, which is symbolic for the drink that Esau has given to these other countries, has done to them. All right. In some shape, way, or fashion, it's given the wealth and power that certain countries have to America. All right, and it's put them in a state of ultimately being naked. All right. Verse 16, it says, "Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of Yahweh's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory." All right. And this is pretty much what's going to come down the pipeline as we see this war escalating, And if you've been paying attention to the news, Iran has been in the talks of closing down the Strait of Hormuz. All right. I believe that's how it's pronounced. All right. But matter of fact, what am I talking about? Hormuz. All right. I got it pulled up right here. That's what I was, But you know what? This is actually a good time to mention it. All right. It says, if Iran closes the Strait of Hormuz, it would have major consequences for the U.S. economically, militarily, and strategically. All right. And as I asked ChatGPT the nuts and bolts of how it would affect America, there are many side effects. All right. And America knows this, which is why right now they're asking China to make Iran stop from doing that, But again, this just shows you the set position of where Esau is in within the aspect of him, getting a cup, so to speak, of what he's been doing throughout the earth, and that's being a tyrant and ultimately setting up his society through the manner of being a thief, robber, and pursuant to John 10:10, roughly paraphrasing, the thief cometh not but to steal, kill, and destroy. All right. And right now the heathen are coming into a mindset of picking up within the pattern of Esau doing this, And watch, just me speaking as a man, watch China not even, help America. All right. Now, of course, there may be some kind of leverage, all right, because there's a lot of countries that actually require and are, they rely on that substance that comes from that passage. All right. But we're coming into a time right now, man, where America is going to be the last country that these other countries want to associate themselves with. All right. Based upon Iran being backed up by these other countries that are in a position of being for Iran. All right. And guess what? If I'm not mistaken, China happens to be one of those countries based upon their association with BRICS, all right, which is the acronym stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and just last year, the first of last year, January 1st, 2024, you had a lot of Middle East countries actually join, like Oman, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, all right, and many others. But the point being is that we're coming into a time, like I said earlier, that America is going to be having their back against the wall, all right? And it's going to do nothing more but escalate the third woe, all right? But just to let you people know, it's not going to happen at a snap of a finger, all right? Because just like in any other war, time, has to play its natural course, just like the Cold War, the Second War, of course, and other little proxy wars that happen that lead up to bigger ones. All right. So, and of course, on top of that, another prophecy that has to play before that war kicks off is pursuant to Revelation 13 and 16, the MLTB being mandated. All right, and within this whole frenzy that's happening within these different countries, all right, it's ultimately going to lead to America having to be put within a position of resetting itself, all right, because there's been a lot of talks about how, let me just look it up real quick. This is under Real Clear Energy, and I simply just looked up America's power grid is increasingly unreliable. And it says a recent report from the NERC, which is the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, sounds the alarm. America's power grid is becoming dangerously unreliable. The nation is hurtling toward a future where rolling blackouts and power shortages will be the norm rather than the exception. All right, and you know what, let's actually keep reading right here. All right, because one of the main countries that can actually aid within having this grid go down can be Iran and their his buddies that are backing him up. All right, like Russia, China. Okay, throughout all of last year, if I'm not mistaken, there was a bunch of reports of, cyber attacks happening that came from Russia. Okay? So we'll see what happens, man. But we're living in a time where, as the beloved Elder Muwatazak had said last camp, alright, any day now, Esau could have the mandation of the MLTB happen. Alright? Because a lot is happening within America right now, man. We're living in a very beautiful time, Akim, and it's something that we all should really pay attention to based upon the idea of what we believe in, and that's prophecy, baby. Alright? But let me keep reading in this little AI overview that gives us some more feedback about America's power grid being very unreliable. It says, yes, America's power grid is increasingly facing reliability challenges. This is due to a combination of factors, including aging infrastructure, the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, and the shift away from reliable baseload power sources like coal. Okay? These issues are leading to more frequent and prolonged power outages, impacting both residential and commercial customers. Alright? Jumping down a little, and let's see if we get a point concerning the whole matter of, other countries being able to, tap their fingers into getting it put down. Alright? You know what? Let's actually play with ChatGPT real fast. Let me ask it a quick question. Could Iran take America's power grid down? Let's see what pops up. It says Iran does not currently have the capability to take down the entire US power grid, but it could cause localized disruptions through cyber attacks, like we just said, that's spirit, alright, or other asymmetric methods. Here's an honest breakdown. Now let's actually just jump to the conclusion just so we could get a quick answer. Alright. Right here, yep, bottom line, it says, question, can Iran take down the US grid? No, not the entire grid, but parts of it. Alright. Can they cause blackouts? Yes, small / local ones. Is the US protected? Mostly, but not invulnerable. Is the threat real? Yes, especially in cyber. Okay? And this has been the talking point within many broadcasts when it comes down to this new age that we're living in regards of a technocracy. Alright? The only way for this technocracy to be put in order is for what to happen? For this current system that we have up and running taken down. Alright? And by the looks of how everything is playing out within the spectrum of all these different countries clashing heads with one another, it could very well lead to another snowball effect of America's power grid going down, man. And again, matter of fact, let me pull up a quick. This is another ChatGPT conversation that I had the other day concerning how Russia is reacting to the whole U.S. attack that they put on Iran. This is, of course, ChatGPT. How has Russia responded from the latest attack U.S. has sent forth to Iran? And it says, the first little bullet point, official condemnation and serious warnings. Russian Foreign Ministry denounced the strikes are irresponsible, a gross violation of international law, the UN Charter and UN Security Council resolutions, warning of dangerous escalation that undermines both regional and global security. Okay? And actually, let me look up something else. Russia's cyber. I looked up Russia's cyber attacks can take down America's power grid. And let's get this first article by Government Technology entitled Russians hacked into America's electric grid. Here's why securing it is hard. All right? It says there is no way to completely protect the grid. Regulation at the state and federal level makes it hard for utilities and regulators to work together to get the job done. All right? It says hackers taking down the U.S. electricity grid may sound like a plot ripped from a Bruce Willis action movie, but the Department of Homeland Security has recently disclosed new details about the extent to which Russia has infiltrated critical infrastructure like American power plants, water facilities, and gas pipelines. All right? And I believe not too long ago you had a water facility within America get hacked. All right? Or you had certain parts of America that didn't have water. You know? And that's nothing more but a test to see how effective, all right, these cyber attacks are. It says this hacking is similar to the 2015 and 2016 attacks on Ukraine's grid. While DHS has raised the number of the Russian utility hacking incidents it detected from dozens to hundreds, it still maintains that this infiltration has not risen beyond scouting mode. Alright? Russia denies having any role in the hacking, yet the specter of Russian sabotage in the US now seems more realistic than it used to. Clearly, there's no time to waste in shoring up the grid security. Yet, getting that done is not easy, as I've learned through my research regarding efforts to stave off outages in hurricane-prone Florida. Alright? But the point being is that the power grid is something that is very well penetrable. Alright? Because when it comes down to a cyber attack happening, it's something that works in a similitude as a canker. Alright? Once it gets on something, it expands and it goes throughout the body of internet. Alright? Like a cancer. Let me just look up for some keywords in this article. That's pretty much the point though. You know, showing forth that mindset of what we're going into in regards of how, you know, this little quarrel and noise that we see happening in the Middle East can ultimately cascade to what we know as Jacob's Trouble in America. Alright? Starting off with some kind of power grid where the entire society within America is going to be in complete shambles, you know? But in order for people to come back to that natural state of how America has been, alright, of you having your phone at your fingertips, you living that lavish life of being an American, just take this chip, okay? So let's actually go back here and start switching gears into some information that I wanted to pull out in regards to this whole, little conflict that came up going back 2 days ago, alright? Back in a question that I asked about how Russia is responding to the U.S. attacking Iran. This is under official condemnations and serious warnings, alright? It says Dmitry Medvedev, deputy head of Russia's Security Council, which is also somebody else that has said that through Russia's nuclear capability, they'll be able to melt the concrete of America. Alright? Just a quick little side note. He said, wait, Salakia. It said Trump started a new war, arguing the strikes will actually strengthen hardliners in Iran and rally public support around Supreme Leader Khamenei, or Khamenei. Alright? Man, them Persians got some weird names. But pretty much, man, this dude Khamenei, I was listening to the beloved elder Yashawamba a little earlier ago, and right now he is pretty much hiding. You know, there's been talks that he's in a bunker, and he's pretty much making the point to look for another successor that would take his role from being the supreme leader of Iran. You know, but this leads us back to the point that we were reading in the book Satan's Angels Exposed. Alright? Because by them taking this dude out, what has Esau always done? What did he do out in damn, the name of it is escaping me right now. Damn, Salakia. But you know, pretty much within history, Esau has always played that same charade of taking down a tyrant president and then setting up one of his own that would come in the name of democracy. Alright? That would come in the name of these different drinks that Esau ultimately gave him. You know? And it would ultimately put that country in a state of being nothing more but another servant to America, man. Alright? The Gulf of... Damn, Salakia, man. I'm drawing a blank right now. The Gulf of Panama, Salakia, man. I knew it started with the P, but I just forgot the the name. But yeah, the Gulf of Panama, man. There's a movie that the beloved brother Partham had put me on entitled The Panama Deception. All right, and pretty much in that documentary, it shows how Esau, of course, being the damn devil that he is, wanted that Panama Canal to himself, you know? And in order for him to have it, he would take down the set president that was within that country, alright? And set one of his own that would play in the favor of giving Esau what he wanted, okay? And it's the same thing that we see playing out within this dude, the supreme leader of Iran. I forget his name. It's a weird ass name. But pretty much, him hiding in a damn bunker and, pretty much telling his people to find somebody else to put up in that seat of power, But real quick, I want to play this quick segment that the beloved Allah Yashawamba had played by the name of this dude called Asman Gold TV, where he pretty much goes into some news about that whole matter, alright? And then from here we'll go back to that book, because it'll play a quick comparison of what we're, tying in through the spirit. All right.
Situation. What has begun?
The new guy
who has been an ex.
Who could have guessed? Can you believe that? Wow. Damn. I would have. But I thought they said.
Now the son of the late Shah, His Royal Highness Reza Pahlavi,
that's the new guy,
who has been in exile, is advocating for a new future for Iran. He says he believes that the moment is now. He posted this on social media. Quote, "The Islamic Republic has reached its end.
This.
It is in the process of collapsing. Khamenei, like a frightened rat, has gone into hiding underground and has lost control of the situation. What has begun is irreversible." I spoke with him moments ago.
Right, so this is an Iranian that was actually put up in that seat of power through an American vote. All right? Which, again, that's all bread and circus, man. All right? This is a setup. This dude is a puppet. Okay? And he's going to do nothing more but play in the favor of what Esau wants, man. And as a matter of fact, let's get Micah 2 and start at the tippy top, verse 1. It says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand." All right? "And they cover fields." You know what? Let me actually get this in the NLT. Let me start at 1 again. It says, "What sorrow awaits you who lie awake at night, thinking up evil plans?" All right? And again, within that whole, 33-year time period of Netanyahu pretty much pointing the finger at Iran of creating, nuclear weapons, all right? It shows you that this is that man, that the book of Micah, the 2nd chapter, is describing. All right? You rise at dawn and hurry to carry them out, simply because you have the power to do so. And that's pursuant to Job 9:24, man. The earth has been given, all right, to the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces thereof. If not, where and who is he? All right? And the prophets of the Heavenly Father have been sent forth to show you who exactly he is. All right? And call a duck exactly what a duck is, man. All right? Verse 2, it says, "When you want a piece of land, you find a way to seize it." All right? And this is exactly what the little hats want, man. All right? When you want someone's house, you take it by fraud and violence. You cheat a man of his property, stealing his family's inheritance. And although the, Iranians aren't the people that are supposed to be in that land, all right, it shows you the mindset of how Esau works, of just taking and not giving a damn about what people have set up within certain parts of where they stay at, But this is the devil for you, man, all right? And he's doing what he does, and nobody's saying anything about it, okay? Not even this dude.
Control of the situation. What has begun is irreversible. I spoke with him moments ago. The exiled crown prince.
So now there's talks of putting in a regime that is more cooperative with Israel and the United States, that won't further its nuclear, program, that will stop funding these terror groups and bring about more peace in the Middle East, or what they call the Middle East. All right.
Prince of Iran. Here's our talk.
What was it? Okay, so they actually talked.
Crown Prince, thank you very much for joining us at this historic moment in time. It's good to have you with us.
Good afternoon, Martha. Good to be with you as well.
Tell me, first of all, Crown Prince, what is your understanding of what is actually the situation on the ground right now in Iran?
The latest report that we have had, Martha, is that the control apparatus of the regime is almost collapsing. And we see more and more of that sort of reports that are coming to us from personnel within the military or intelligence that says so. It's really falling apart much faster.
Replace a dictator with a king? Well, it's important that Iranians if Iranians decide to have a king, then they should have the right to have a king. We shouldn't force them into a democracy.
And this is what Esau does, man. Habakkuk.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the point, though, man. Again, if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you could see Esau's playbook, all right, of him setting this dude up, and playing in the favor of what the little hats want, all right? Esau is a one-trick pony, and the elect, starting off with the Heavenly Father's prophets, are the ones that are pointing it out, okay? So let's go back here in this, we didn't even get to the first paragraph, damn. But let's keep reading from where we left off. It says, "The Mazzini Pike plan was to control the world. How would this be accomplished? The plan was relatively simple. It called for, according to the writings of some, communism, fascism, and the struggle for the Middle East to foment 3 global wars and at least 2 major revolutions." All right. It says the First World War was to enable communism to destroy the Tsarist government of Russia and replace it with militant atheism. All right. This came to pass, and we now see the results of this overthrow. Okay. And even when you go back to that history, man, once that dude was assassinated, that Austrian president, all right, it was game on, which best believe Esau was behind it. But again, this has always been Esau's playbook, of always setting up some kind of alley-oop of deception, and once it's there, he's going to score and do everything in his ability to gain more and more control of the whole world, all right? And depower certain countries that are gaining some kind of traction of being on the same playing field as America, alright? Which is exactly what happened to Russia. Going down, it says, how World War III will begin, alright? It says the Second War would begin by manipulating the governments of Great Britain and Germany to start a world war. Hitler, however, accomplished this almost single-handed, bringing on World War II. After this war, communism would then be in a position to destroy other governments and weaken religions. This also came to pass. Russia controls most of Europe, and the gospel has been effectively suppressed in many nations. This atheistic movement has also successfully spread to China when China became closed to Christianity after World War II. Alright? But this is the point that I want to get in these next two paragraphs. It says, the Mazzini-Pike Blueprint also called for a World War III. Alright? This would begin by firing up the controversy between Judaism and the Muslim world. Alright? And this is exactly what we see happening, man. Alright? They hoped that the Zionists and Muslims would destroy each other and bring the rest of the world into a final conflict. This Armageddon, which the word Armageddon goes back to a Hebrew word, Harmagadwan, which means the hill of troops, alright, the mountain of troops, would bring complete social, political, and economic chaos. And this is exactly what we see happening, alright? A prelude to it, so to speak, based upon this whole schism about how Iran is feeling right now. You know, although they are making these talking points about, an example, Trump, about, yes, we made peace, this, that, and the third, alright? In the eyes of these other nations, man, no, they haven't, you know? Right now, Russia and all these different countries are at the drawing board seeing how to complete, or not how to complete, but how to fabricate a plan to annihilate America and the set moves that they're making via, Israel, alright? And it's going to do nothing more but bring chaos. And this whole, Strait of Hormuz, I believe that's how it's called, the Strait of Hormuz, alright, is going to do nothing more but, be a prelude to that, alright? And if I'm not mistaken, just in, Iran was actually talking about attacking NATO, and that's major because, again, within this Strait of Hormuz being closed, that's going to affect a lot of NATO countries, alright? And as a matter of fact, let's look up what NATO countries rely on the Strait of Hormuz. It says, while not explicitly listed as relying on the Strait of Hormuz in the same direct way as some countries, the US and some European nations, which fucking Esau, man, a lot of European nations are a part of NATO. It says, many of whom are NATO members have a vested interest in the free flow of oil and gas through this vital waterway. And if I'm not mistaken, matter of fact, let me shut up because the receipts are all right here. It says, global energy security. A disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, where about 20% of global oil passes, would have significant impacts on the global energy market and could lead to price increases, potentially impacting the economies of NATO members. Alright? And again, if that's affecting NATO, along with America, someone's bound to give. Okay? And just like Trump tried to ask China to help out and make them not to do that, they ain't gonna do that shit. So we'll see what happens, man. But we're living in a time where all these rumors of wars are gonna lead to what we know as the third woe coming quickly. Alright? So let's keep reading. It says, geopolitical stability. It says the Strait of Hormuz is a key strategic choke point, and any instability in the region could have wider geopolitical implications for the Middle East and beyond. Alright? So it's going to bring nothing more but more tension. Alright? More schisms and more problems within that world where you got a bunch of nations all crumbed together. Alright? It says support for allies. NATO countries have relationships with nations in the Persian Gulf who rely heavily on the strait for their energy exports, including Saudi Arabia, UAE, and others. And that's beautiful, man, because what does this show us? The 10 toes, which are part clay and part iron. Alright? Which, you brothers should already know where I'm trying to go, man. A lot of those NATO countries are going to be put in a chokehold, so to speak, when it comes down to gas prices and other parts of how their economy works. Alright? And, based upon this whole outcome of how it plays out, man, if that strait stays closed for a long time, a lot of those countries are going to give. And they're going to go buddy-buddy with Saudi Arabia and those other different, countries that are within that Persian Gulf region. Okay? And guess what? The Persian Gulf in the scriptures is known as what? The Valley of Jehoshaphat, man. Alright? Maintaining freedom of navigation. It says the U.S. as a NATO member plays a crucial role in maintaining freedom of navigation in international waters, including the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. Fifth Fleet is tasked with protecting commercial shipping in the area. In summary, while NATO members may not be primary recipients of oil and gas passing through the Strait of Hormuz, the stability of this waterway is important for their energy security, global economic stability, and strategic interests. So in other words, they rely on it, man. So we'll see what happens. But believe you me, we're living in a time, Akyam, where shit is gonna hit the fan very soon. Alright? So we gotta keep our eyes peeled, man. Alright? Constantly listening to brothers that are bringing out this information. Stay on our watchtower and continue to blow the horn until this bitch pops. Alright? But let's read this quick, because I'm pretty sure that was it. That was all I wanted in this book. Right, that's pretty much it. So from here, let's go back and finish this summary about how the Strait of Hormuz is going to affect the U.S. and the whole world as a matter. It says Iran is responding with missile strikes, strategic leverage over global oil via the Strait of Hormuz, potential treaty withdrawal, and faster nuclear development. At the same time, it is holding limited indirect diplomacy with Europe and signaling possible concessions, but only if the US and Israel pull back. Tehran's current mix of retaliation and reserve diplomacy aims both to assert strength and keep diplomatic options open. Alright? So, in other words, man, they're all in the mindset of seeing who's going to do what. And whatever happens is going to ultimately escalate to the third world, man. Alright? But within this whole tension, as we read, Russia is getting involved. Alright? And if Russia is going to get involved, the rest of the countries that associate themselves with that power, alright, the chief of the Medes, as a matter of fact, let's get that real quick. They're going to follow right along. So this is Jeremiah chapter 51, and I'll start at 7. It says, Babylon has been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand. Alright? Which goes hand in hand with what we read in Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. Alright? It says, that made all the earth drunken. Alright? The nations have drunken of her wine, democracy, the way of how a country is supposed to be ran. Alright? Therefore, the nations are mad. The nations are waking up to the reality of that, system of how a country is supposed to be ran is farce, alright? And it has done nothing more but weaken their country and strengthened America, alright? And again, a country that represents that to the T is Russia, man. Once that Cold War ended, Russia wanted nothing to do with America. Okay? And now, as Russia is this big dominant power figure in the world, other countries are starting to see that mindset, you know? Which is why in this chapter, it references Russia being the head honcho, so to speak, when it comes down to the third woe occurring, pursuant to Ezekiel the 38th chapter. Alright? So this is Jeremiah 51, and I must jump from 7 down to 11. It says, "Make bright the arrows, gather the shields. The Lord Yahweh has raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes," which is Russia. Alright? "For his device is against Babylon to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of Yahweh, the vengeance of his temple." Alright? The controversy of Zion, man. Verse, you know what, let me go down a little more, because there is a certain point that I want to get that ties in Russia, of course. Jeremiah 51:27, it says, "Set you up a standard in the land, blow the trumpet among the nations, prepare the nations against her, call together against her the kingdoms of Adarat, Menai, and Ashkenaz, appoint a captain against her, cause the horses to come up as the rough caterpillars." And who is the captain? Well, let's read it. 28. "Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes, the captains thereof, and all the rulers thereof, and all the land of his dominion." So at the head of this, league, so to speak, that's going to be barking back at Israel, alright? Russia's going to be the one backing up that talk, so to speak, based upon what Iran is saying, okay? Which is why which is why America is so hesitant to make more moves in the aspect of how they're taking the stand to this whole matter, They understand if they take a bigger bite, it's going to be something that they choke on later on. Alright? So from there, let me go back. And I believe that was the point that I wanted in that one. Yep. Right, let's go back here where it gives us a summary about how Russia responded within this whole matter. Going to the bottom of this one, it says, "Bottom line, Russia has responded with strong diplomatic condemnation, focused on legal legitimacy and nuclear safety, while positioning itself as a mediator. However, it refrains from military intervention. Officials warn of deepening regional instability and the potential of empowerment of Iran's hardliners," which is false, alright? Because even within that whole nuclear base out there in Tehran, you had Russians over there, man, helping them. Okay? And if I'm not mistaken, there was a quote that Russia made, or Vladimir Putin had made, where he was saying that, you know what, let me try and find it right now. Let me just put that in. Let's click this article from Newsbreak or Newsweek. These are some quotes from this dude, Vladimir. Another Edomite, may I add. Alright. Let's read this part. It says, Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has written a letter to Putin to ask for more help, which is the guy that we spoke about that's hiding in a fucking bunker right now. Alright. It says, Aragiki said ahead of his meeting with Putin that Iran and Russia have always had shared concerns, worries, and adversaries. Alright. It says Dmitry Peskov, the Russian presidential spokesperson, said Moscow could provide various forms of help to Iran. And what are those various forms of help? Missiles, okay? And I'm out, I got my phone in front of me. Let me try and look it up right here. I know one of the brothers that be on social media had posted it. That's where I had seen it. But the bear is right behind Iran, man. You know. Well, this backs up the point that I made earlier. It says Russian President Putin warns Israel. Hundreds of Russian nuclear experts are working in Iran and they are not going anywhere. Alright? So in other words, if my people are there, they're not going, of course they're not going anywhere, but best believe that we're in one unison with them. Talking about the Iranians, So the sentiment is out there, man. Alright? If Iran needs missiles, they got missiles. If Iran needs help, they got help. Okay? And how do we know this ultimately? Through the prophecies, man. Of course you may have some spokesperson, bring out the truth, but us brethren, we've been knowing this, man. Starting off with the apostles of Great Millstone, they've been saying this for decades, alright? Of Russia being the head honcho within this whole matter and helping out these other weaklings, We are here, Akyam. Call Allah Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, alright? But just like the beloved apostle Aryamlab had said, don't get too excited, be one excited, alright? Because the end is not yet. Matter of fact, let's end off with that. Salaki, let me get that in Matthew 24. I believe the end is blue letter be tripping, man. Salakia. It might be in a different gospel. Man, my computer's tripping, man. It's going slow as hell. There you go. Damn. This is Matthew 24, and I'll start at 4. Alright? And Yahushua answered and said unto them, take heed, let me get the red letter going, that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the anointed, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Alright? And as we understand, man, before this major war happens, alright, the war to end all wars, the MOTB has to be mandated. Alright? Jacob Trouble has to play. The Hour of Temptation, all that. Okay? But again, as the apostles always say, and as the scriptures say, within that same time frame of where all hell is breaking out loose within the cities of America, simultaneously, then missiles are going to be deployed. Okay? And you could really feel it. You could see how everything is playing within that narrative, man. Within the cities of America, a lot is happening. Based upon this whole ICE thing, and him pretty much trying to make more moves within merging this society into a technocracy, alright? And this whole war matter, man. So us brethren, again, we gotta be disciplined. We gotta keep our spirit within the aspect of constantly and being in tune with the prophecies, okay? Because the prophecies right now are popping like popcorn, alright? So we gotta make sure that we're looking at everything, man, alright? Because Esau pursuant to Genesis, the 3rd chapter, is the most subtle beast of all. Alright? He's that serpent, that old serpent, that red dragon, that is doing nothing more but the bidding of the Heavenly Father at the end of the day, man. And the Lord has given us the secrets. Okay? So with that, man, Lord willing, this was an edifying lesson for you, brothers and sisters. I know we were kind of all over the place. Lord willing, you brothers were edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. But as always, I want to end off by giving all praise to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai B'Hashem Ruach HaKodesh. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, the elders of Great Millstone that have taught us His truth and that rule well. Peace and blessings unto the elect. Shalom.